Welcome to another episode of Identiholics. My name is Christina Wynn, and I am your host. And today we have Bashira Baset, and I'm really excited to talk to her because we are going to talk about change management and how to modernize your IAM stack, which is something that I keep seeing comes up over and over again, especially when companies have been around for a really long time and have a lot of legacy, sometimes tech debt, but definitely a lot of legacy systems. So, first off, Bashir, thank you so much for coming and joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
The first thing I want to talk about is what is it that you do and how is it that you got to where what you do? Because you have a really interesting backstory.
Yeah, I am the Director of Identity and Access Management at VF Corporation. We have a single identity environment that manage all our brands. In case you didn't know who we are the corporate owner of the North Face, Vans, and a family of 12 brands. Um, we went through this journey we've completed the journey about a year ago where we modernized our identity platform.
That's pretty amazing. And how did you end up, what is it that you did to get to director of IAM? Because I know there's some people who are looking for jobs, they're crazy though. I feel
Yeah.
like director at IAM is one of the hardest jobs in any company. So,
And yeah, it is. And I don't know, it was difficult to make the transition. My background is really in computer programming, and then went into hosting, environment, and support of the infrastructure. Later on, to be involved in the communication from the collaboration perspective and change management. That was very close to my heart, supporting all our employees with the email and SharePoint and the whole gamut of Microsoft was a little overwhelming for our users to make the transition. So change management was very endearing to me, and I felt this is very important to support them through the transition. Fast forward, we knew we have an old technology, old environment of identity, and we needed somebody who can talk to both ends, technology and communication with our employees. And that's how I became the identity person.
yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense because I feel like the people who do identity within any organization, they have to be the most communicative, right? Because they have to talk to the technical staff that doesn't want to change, the C-suite staff that doesn't want to
Yeah.
pay. Like,
Exactly, exactly. And you have to please all aspect of the organization.
yeah, yeah. And then you have the end users who like half
Yeah,
the time they don't want to do anything. So,
exactly.
yeah, no, so I think it's really fascinating. It's definitely it's I really do. I'm not joking when I say I think it's one of the toughest jobs in an organization because you've got the CISO, which is hard, but like, oh, IAM, you got to know every single system you have out there.
It's the necessary evil in the environment, and you cannot win anybody's satisfaction or there is resistant always to the change, and it's always we're governing what they are doing, and this is always the last in their mind. Um, but you have to play the game, and you have to be open to the challenge and open to the criticism that comes with it.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. You definitely need thick skin when you work in identity.
Exactly.
I love that. So, all right. So, in modernizing your IAM system, I'm going to make assumptions. I don't want to talk about vendors. My assumption is that a lot of your IAM was on-prem and
Yes.
and maybe a little old now. And that you likely also have, I mean, you have 12 brands, so you've got a lot of different types of systems within those 12 brands and architectures. So you likely also have some of the more legacy systems within there too, because some of your brands are quite old. So, how, when you are thinking through that entire technical stack, how are you determining which cloud products? Because my assumption is when modernizing, you went to the cloud. which cloud products to choose and which types of IAM products to choose to be able to better protect your full system.
Yeah. We went through, I would say 9 months for the evaluation of where we want to be. Our implementation of the first identity platform was put in first and foremost for compliance reason and how we can manage the FSA. And that we accomplished that, and it was very successful in that aspect. However, when we want to expand and we are growing as a company, those number of FSA keep growing with us. And the environment was so customized that it was impossible to even do a simple upgrade. We struggled, and we had multiple challenges with those upgrades, and any movement within the environment was a chaos for us. So we had to actually, before we even went through the evaluation where we want to be, we had to look at our environment and see how we can simplify it, what is necessary, and what's we can retire, what we can remove and simplify. So we went through every aspect of the identity space, documented it, put the use cases that we have to meet with our business unit. And we knew the tool was very difficult to manage from the end user perspective. It was hard to find what you need. It is not user friendly. And that was number one headache that we had. And we were looking at something very simple, something that can accommodate us for today and the future. And at the same time, we didn't want something that is going to be to make the end user life more difficult than already is. We documented about 160 use cases. That was very important to our business. And we had our identity champion that were helping us to identify what is needed and what is the headache they are seeing in the brand. Sitting in the services platform or in the services area is not, and you cannot hear everything in the brand. You don't know what their major headache with the tool. So the champion really did help us document that and ensure we have that already, the eye for the future where we want to be. We did get them involved in our evaluation of the tool. We had some from our end users, we had from our corporate HR were involved, finance was involved, compliance was involved, and we went through those use cases. We did a POC, provided them the data, and have each company try to meet those requirements and answer the question. And not only answer it, they had to show us exactly how it's done. So that's how the intensive period that we went through those 9 months to select the product. I don't think the cost was a major issue for us, but it was mainly the end user experience. The connectors, how we can go back to the legacy system, was another issue. Like I told you, we had multiple area that we were doing customization, and we didn't want that. We want to go 99%, I would say 95 to 99% out of the box. And if we can customize one area, we had to do it, that's fine. But anything else, I want it to be out of the box.
That is awesome. That's very cool. So there's a lot to unpack there. And one of the things was the discussion of retirement of systems. And that's something that I've definitely seen. So, in doing an implementation that I did years ago, we had to go through and review all of the systems that were there. We had to talk to every single business owner. We actually became like part of the GRC tool, I feel like. And one of the and one of the things that we realized is if we told them like, look, we're going to do this modernization, we want to figure out how to include you. A lot of the times that if it was a very old system, they would say, well, we were going to retire it anyway, so we can just retire it, so then we don't have to worry about it. And it was really amazing that we were able to get through a lot of tech debt, retire a lot of tech debt just by doing a modernization. Did you see that within your system as well?
Absolutely. We knew some system it was impossible to remove.
Uh-huh.
And we actually went through each application that was in our existing identity and we evaluated, has anybody even requested it in the past year? How many users are actually entitled for it or they have that in their identity space? Are they, how many role or how many aspect of the application is being used? We did the rationale behind each one of them. And honestly, I would say we went from, I would say we reduced about 100 from where we were, but we increased it by 100. So it offset. We discovered more that we didn't know we even had.
Yeah, but the increasing of the 100, was it legacy or was it just new net like
Some
new?
of it was new.
Yeah,
Some and some of our customers, I'm going to call them customers, our employees, when they found, especially the champion, when you work with them and you show them what you can do and actually get them engaged to see the tool prior to installing it, they will be more inclined to tell you what they have that they haven't even told anybody else. So they will start telling you about different application. Oh, by the way, we have this. Have you known about it?
Yeah. That, yeah, you once you gain the trust, they'll be more open to you. That is true. They get scared when you start to ask them questions. And then on the use case side, so I've seen this two ways, and part of it is whenever I see pushback from different organizations, their pushback is, well, you're not covering 100% out of the box. So did you have an agreed upon, all right, well, I can't cover 100% of your use cases. You're giving me some edge use cases. Did you say, look, I'll get you to 80% and then we'll slowly work through the last 20? Or how did you deal with those edge use cases? Because there's always 1 or 5 million.
Exactly. So when we started the journey with the migration, we knew we have a deadline where we need the two system has to live together for a while, and then we have to eventually reduce our costs by shutting down the old system. So we had a target deadline when we are going to end the project. The way we went about that, we knew we have FSA that we need to move into the new tool. We know that there is certain application that has lots of users that use it, requested it day in and day out. We have to move it in with us. So we worked our way backward to make sure that every application that we know it has a user requested it within the last 6 months has to be moved. And that's how we worked our schedule. Because of that, and because we wanted to accomplish the date and accomplish some savings, we had to take a decision and say, let's move it at some instance, let's move it as it is. And the first thing we're going to do once we've shut down the old environment is go back and look at the improvement. And we highlighted the area that we're going to improve. So when we came back after the project finished, we came back to those applications quickly and we started working it through.
Mhm. So how did you, like it took you more than, a year, my assumption is, to get through the whole migration process. How did you get a buy-in from the C-suite to have this, what I'm sure for them felt like a long drawn out process because it was a multi-year cost, as opposed to just getting it, rip that band-aid off, get it all done immediately?
Yeah, there was no way they would let me just shut down old environment and bring down the new one. And we didn't want to affect anything from our compliance perspective, our security, and our users. We didn't want to do that. We had it's always a convincing the C-suite is the hardest part of the project. Having them involved from day one and having the tool to show them the dissatisfaction we had from our end users, that was a big support for us. The employee experience was very important for our leadership. The cost came second. The stability of the environment was the second thing to come in. We were having outages. We were having difficulties even bringing new business in, new application in. So those three areas helped me convince my leadership that this is the right time to do it. And having the team that was within VF supported me to show them that we can actually get them to a better place by documenting the whole process, doing the improvement, doing the simplification ahead of time. That got us also the trust that we needed from our leadership.
Was there any ever a time where you had massive pushback from like one of the organizations? They said, "Oh, she doesn't understand how this works because we do things so."
Always. Always, always. I think it wasn't from the aspect of can we do it or not. I think from the digital technology we've proven we can do it. It is just can we do all the controls and keep all the security intact while we move this mountain. And we had our security team and our compliance team by our side. We had them to support us. We had them to build those controls. Even they simplified some of our security controls just because we are doing more automatic provisioning, deprovisioning. We have more control of the environment. So that's how we were able to gain the trust. Security always a difficult place to convince them this is going to be easy and the timeline can be achieved. But they were on board and they pulled all the magic on the word to get us there.
That's amazing. It's not, I've definitely worked in organizations where they had a lot more sub-organizations under them, and
Yeah.
there was always like one or two very loud naysayers that we had to prove to. Oh, I mean, I felt like we were relitigating over and over again.
It is, and don't forget that the partnership with those business units ahead of time can help you. Um, I think one of the area that I hear from most identity leaders is that how we can convince HR what we want to do. How can we change their mentality? And I had a good relationship with them. They were helping us with the design, how we want to get it done. Um, so they were their involvement and the communication with them that helped us move forward.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think that if you're an IAM leader, you better go and become best friends with your HR immediately.
HR and compliance.
You are 100% correct. I have seen issues where the IM and HR did not get along. And the problem is HR had all the data, so it didn't really matter. Like that
Yeah.
I had to figure out ways to get around that, and it's not always pretty or easy. So I totally agree.
They were actually anxious. I'm going to give you an example. In the past, in the old tool, unfortunately, we didn't have direct communication with our HR system. It was a flat file communication. And they were eager to get us to where we can do API and get those files anytime we wanted to without calling them every morning and say, oh, we messed up. We need a new file from you. So we have our access that we can actually run any job without getting them in and keep distracting them from their day-to-day support. So that was one of the area that they felt they can improve. And the other area is the consistency of the data and the cleanup of the data that we went through also helped them because the two systems were not 100% in sync. You have the workday system, you have the identity system, and then you have your actual active directory in the back end that has to stay in sync. And in some instance, in our environment, they weren't. So
It's not just your environment, it's every environment. And actually, I think that's a really good point because data cleanup is like it has to be done whenever you're modernizing your system. And it's the scariest part because you don't want to lose any end users in that data cleanup, but you also need to get rid of the end users who should no longer be there.
yeah, yeah, it's a daunting task, but We actually did a good job with it, and our HR even standardized some of the feed, standardized some of the data discrepancies that we were seeing. And that helped, especially, and we're still working through it. We're still trying to get to the RBAC and role base, and that's going to take us lots of time and lots of work from the HR side. But we'll get there. I know with our relationship we can get there.
That's awesome. We I did an IGA migration once, and it was after a finding. And the first thing that we had as a roadblock was there was a very loud, I don't even know what his role was, but there was a very loud person in the room who said, you know, Beth Ann does not want to lose her job, and you're gonna get rid of her job. And because Beth Ann was like using, PDFs that were like not even electronically signed, like you'd have to, it was ridiculous to get access, and they were using that for compliance. And Beth Ann looked at him and said, "Wait a minute, can you explain to me how this works?" And we explained the automation. She goes, "Yeah, I'm good. That sounds great because I can do all the other things I need to do, right?" But
Yeah,
there's always some naysayer who
it
thinks
is.
poor Beth.
Especially, yeah, especially when you want to take something away from them in the application side. If they are doing provisioning or something like that, it is always, um, are you eliminating my job? Am I being displaced? Why you're doing it? And the fortunate thing behind that is you could do that or keep doing it, and you're going to keep being asked to justify certain access and justify why you're doing that over and over. Or we can take this from you and you concentrate on something else. And that was one of the area where we succeeded. It's like, okay, well, if you help us in this aspect, maybe you can be relief and be doing something more fun. In some aspect, it would work. Others, there is of those who want to keep it close by, and you have to deal with these and just say, okay, let's keep it as it is now. Let's prove we can do it easier with somebody else and get you on board. So it's you win some, you lose some, but once you win one and you have the word of mouth between them, that will get you somewhere eventually.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The other thing for our back that I found, so we had again, this was compliance based, so we had an RBAC project that we had to complete very quickly for one of the systems. That was the impetus. And in it, they wanted to continue and use all of their roles, and they wanted, I mean, it was crazy. So they basically did not want to modernize or streamline how they did access management. They just wanted to do exactly what they do with PDFs and turn it into whatever the cloud-based solution was.
Yeah.
In this scenario, when we were trying to gather requirements, we figured out that they could have had over almost 500 different permutations of like role-based access, which was way too high, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is not a just in time, this isn't attribute based. This was like, come on. So,
Yeah.
that have you come across that where people don't want to also streamline their how they do their processes, and how did you over?
Yeah, I mean, we do, and especially now, we went through the cleanup of those roles and those entitlement, I'm going to call them. Why would somebody who works in a distribution center need all these? And why this distribution center is different from this one? Um, we had to take a one area, clean it up, and then share with them how much it's going to reduce the overhead for them, especially during certification. And that by itself, I think that as a manager, they were willing to come in and say, yeah, let me evaluate and see, can we reduce it? Can we make it faster? Our main issue was the legacy system and how we can get them to stop provision it so we could do it faster for them, and to understand what time and when and who is going to have that access was the biggest obstacle for us, because you have to work with HR, some of the things you're looking for may not be in the HR system. And that actually allowed us to build some RBAC for the future and make it faster to provision, so you don't have to wait. You don't have to come to the system and request it.
That's pretty awesome. That's really important. So we've been talking a lot about change management on for the business organization side, and then there's the change management for the end user side, because if the end users don't adopt it, then you have a very expensive system that doesn't really work as well anymore.
No, of course not.
So, so change, I see change management kind of in like different buckets. You've got to convince the C-suite, and that so you can get the money. You've got to convince the business units so that they will comply, and then you have to convince the end users. And in some cases, there's a lot of different training manuals and stuff that goes into all the different things. So how do you see that whole change management organization, and how did you bucket that up?
You have to use what is the most, like I said, we had our champions that were helping us from early or from the simplification we went through. You have to see what venue you could use to get them engaged. Most of it, we have our self-service video that is very short, very targeted, that you could go and ask, how do I provision, how I do request access. They didn't have the time to read a document. So we had to go and be creative and record something that is less than a minute. Maximum, it has to be a minute, because the attention span is so short and the demand for something else is even greater. So we had to go through each function and see where we're going to have a big increase. And we looked at previous implementation of different system, and where we saw the biggest request or the biggest hit on some of the documentation or videos that the users were engaged with. And we really had to use different mechanism based on each business unit and based on what is the function that you're trying to address. So you have to look at them and say, okay, are they more receptive to this area, to the video, or are they looking for a documentation? So we had to bucketize what function we're going to do. And in most cases, we provided the video, the documentation, and the training, hands-on training. We even had our users to come into our sandbox and look at the system ahead of time. That made them engage, made them tell us in some area, this is what we don't like, this area, can you change it? We don't like this form. And that made them feel like they are vested in the project. They are giving feedback for others.
That's I really like that. The idea of having short videos, especially for today's attention span,
Yeah.
smart. That's so smart.
We did invest when we implemented O365. We invested in, I'm not going to name the company, but we invested in something like that, and we've used it in multiple implementation. You could assign it to users, especially when you know there is a big application that is really heavily used and heavily requested. We took some of those videos and we actually assigned it to those who are using it and who requested it in the past, and they had to complete the videos. And we had those tracking. We were able to provide management by how many hits, how many people reviewed it, and how many actually was in the system requesting that. Data is all you could do. This is going to be your friend forever and ever.
Oh, amazing.
API.
I love that. So one of the other pieces whenever you go live with a new system is making sure the help desk is involved, because you're going to have a spike in help desk requests. So how did you prepare them? Are they under you? Do you have your own, or how? Okay, so you had to work with another business unit.
We all report to the same C-level, but we are in a different organization within that group. They were part of our user champion. So they were on board. They were even helping with some of the KB article that the end user may have, when they call in, they may have it. They did have the training, they had hands-on, and they were involved from day one to look through the system and see, okay, this we can do it. No, this is going to be cumbersome on us. And we had to help them. Specific training were created for them.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then when you did after, so how long was your I want to call it like marketing event. How long was your marketing campaign to end users before you went live? Because this is something like I've seen a lot of organizations do it differently. Sometimes they
Yeah.
forget, but
So
sometimes very long. So
we started early on with the champion, and we gave them some material. We actually had some flyers that we were trying to put into the each building we had. Then we backed out from it, and we opted out to use our digital technology channels and how they can, our leadership can communicate. The first communication came in from our C level. This is what we're going to do. This project was selected, and we're going to be reporting on it on every quarter. Every month you have to show some of the project plan and what is the milestone that you're trying to achieve for that month. So transparency was very important. The targeted and why, that was, we had to work with our communication. We had to work with our vendor. The why was very important. If you don't have that clear and you cannot articulate it very well to your end user, you're going to lose them. And make it short and sweet. If you send those long email ahead of time, it's going to be, it will lose its effectiveness. So that's how it started first. And then we built on top of it. We started advertising for some of our teaser. Have you seen our new tool? We get them also engaged on of naming it. What do you want to name it? What do you think it should have that name? And they get them engaged, and you have to give them something in return for their engagement. So that was some of the things we had to do, raffle ticket and who won the naming convention and so on. So that took, I wouldn't say it was between 2 to 3 months where we were sending teasers. And then we were sending through our intranet, we were having a status update in that site. So they can come in and see it. For our digital technology, it was more comprehensive, where we have our quarterly meeting and we will give an update over the project. Your steerco is going to be your best friend for that project.
yeah, that's very true. That's pretty awesome. I like that. That's a good idea, getting end users to figure out a name. That's really smart. Um,
Yeah.
so when you did go live, was there so I've seen this again in a couple of different ways. I've seen organizations at the go live have essentially a 24 to 48 hour open call, like a what like a
Or
team,
room.
some sort of call that people can jump in and say, hey, I'm having issues, can you help me fix? And they can either go off and do it one-on-one, or they can do it in the whole group. Is that how you did it, or did you just have them call into the help desk? Like, how did you deal with those like first 24 48 hours?
Yeah, we had a war room that the team was involved in. We did it on a different time zone because we're a global company, and we had even some of the our champions were located in all across the world. So that's how we did it. We opened the line from early in the morning, kept it open for 48 hours, and we were monitoring how many calls we got. Our biggest implementation was, or the most difficult part of the implementation was when you're going to do this cut over for your new hire, and you're completely going from the old system to the new system. And that's where we opened the line. We were worried how we're going to affect user coming into it, getting their identity and be able to sign in to email and so on. Luckily, we really didn't have that many. We were very lucky, and we had We actually, so the way we did it, we ran the two systems together. So the old system was still getting the information from our HR system, while the new system is reading it. And at the end of the day, we would match it together and see where we fell and if we had any discrepancies. Once we get to a point where we knew all the data is matching between the old system and the new system, we knew we were home free. When we did that, so that one went very well. We didn't have that issues. Where we were struggling when we had to do a one application at a time or five application at a time, we would open a phone call. We publish that phone number and let them come in and let us know what's going on. So we did it application by application, and that helped. That made it easier and more manageable from the support perspective.
Mhm. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So you had, I mean, you were very successful. You had a lot of wins,
We
but
did.
that process, I'm sure there were a lot of like, you had one step forward, two step back. So could we talk about any of those on how you overcame the like steps back that you had to deal with?
You always have challenge, and if you don't have a challenge, it doesn't make the project fun. And we had a big team that is just sitting there waiting on these challenges. We had to, I'm not going to tell you it was an easy transition with the FSA. We didn't want to affect the system. We didn't want to have any deficiencies, and that was my main concern. How we're going to make sure that we are deprovisioning and provisioning on time. We had our up and down. Our compliance had an eagle's eye on us. They were looking in every step through. We would go through multiple iteration of how the control works, showing them the system, showing them where we are. But you always have this 1% that you're going to fail for it. But it's not, I don't call it a failure, it's a challenge that you overcome. And we did overcome those.
That's really good. And then once you got through, you then had to go back and deal with your edge use cases, right? So you kind of purposely kept some of your even more challenging things to the end.
Yeah.
Were you working on those the whole time? Or yeah.
Yes.
So then once you got to the to near the end and you had, had to deal with your punch list of the edge cases, how did you handle those?
We had, I have to say, you have to have a good partner who has done it in the past. And that made it much easier because they have seen it, they have done it in the past, and they can actually give you heads up of where you're going to have some hiccup on those areas. And we were 100% on the keyboard waiting on these issues to occur. And we had a plan. And if it wasn't one plan, it was two or three, how we can mitigate it. From those, the improvement were one thing we did whenever we had the first group of application was migrated, we had the second team is standby, is looking at it from, okay, we did it this way, but we know we documented that is some improvement we can do. So they were working on that already. It was a type of bucketize type of application. So we did the small one, the quick one, quick win, we called it, that we implemented it and we know we didn't have to do much with it later on. Then we went to the medium and we knew we have to go as is and then immediately go back and fix something. So we had a group of engineers waiting on the side and to take these and immediately make the change.
Mhm.
So it was iterative changes, but it was fast and very planned ahead of time where you don't overlap between the new implementation and the existing improvement.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then when you were the way that I actually want to drill down on how you guys chose the applications because that's a good point too. The quick wins early on, were you trying to gain get as many of the employees onto the new system as possible, or were you trying to get the FSAs on, or were you just trying to like how did you pick, and then what were the, not necessarily the exact order, but what was the order
Yeah.
for the preference?
So the order we had, FSA, we kept it to the end.
Yeah.
We didn't want to touch it because the minute I put the first FSA in, I want to run my certification so I know I succeeded. So we left it to the end. The very first one we looked at was how can we do the connected application to our SSO. If that's the one that we can do it quickly and it has the most the number of application. So those were very quick. We know if you can do one of them and add it to a group and do the SSO with it, then you can do it for 10, 20, or 30. So that was my first group. The second group we looked at was what else can we do with it? Does it have a connector that is well established, well documented, and even our application team is willing to help us? Those were the next one and the target. Definitely the biggest obstacle was the FSA, and to build those control, because your control is going to change. How we were doing it and how we're doing it today is going to change. So those took us, I think, the longest time to get done. And then once we put the first one in, we immediately did the certification on it to make sure we're actually succeeded with what we have done through it.
That's awesome. So it sounds like, and I want to, because it sounds like anything behind the SSO kind of got done first, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
You use bang for your buck, which also means that you got pretty much every user migrated in the first wave, which is even cooler.
Yes.
And then after that, you likely ended up, because if you were looking for those with connectors, you likely ended up with more modern products and likely more
Absolutely.
solutions. And then you left your legacy for last, but it's because you had to do a lot of work to get to the legacy, right?
And we did. We were working all along in the design of the legacy. We had a dedicated team for this application. The reason we had to do that because even some of our application, you still have multiple authentication. You don't have one authentication method for it. So our user provisioning also has to get involved. And we had to get them in ahead of time, user provisioning and our automation team, they had to be on with us to look through how we can faster automate that process. So even though we got the application into the identity tool, I still have my automation team in the background working on how we can completely automate that process without having user provisioning involved in the process. So the second part of it, what came in, is the automation of that process, and that took us some time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So we couldn't do completely connected. I'm going to give you an example, AS400. You
Mhm.
cannot do that. I mean, you have a connector to it possibly, but you have an application sits on top of it that you cannot do that. And you have to have a provisioning for the OS, provisioning for the application. We had to automate it. We had to use some AI to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've had, I mean, we've had to go so far as to like just create a jump box to be able to get into something because that was the easiest way to be able to protect it.
Yeah, and we do have that. We still have, we knew we have our, some users still has to come through VPN, but you still have, yeah, the access to the application and authentication to the application is going to be totally different.
No, I totally agree. That I You made me think of another question, which is an interesting one, and if you can't answer, don't worry, we can like take this out. But the question is about, so you, like I said, IAM teams are really interesting in that they tend to be one of the only business users within a full organization that understands every single application that's out there because you have to connect to all the applications
Exactly.
in doing this, and this is something I've always thought about when we did it, is are do you go back to the business unit and say, you know, this is a really, really old application. Is there any way that we can possibly move off of this? Can we do you I think some some companies would allow you to do that, and then some would be like, "Get out of my business." So I was wondering if you ever did that, and if you did, if anyone actually said, "You know what? This sounds like a good idea."
Um, you can suggest, but it's most of the time is very difficult to convince them. Um, we do work with them day in and day out, and most of the time you have to get um, to the vendor themselves sometimes and talk to them and see where we can go. We do have application that need to be updated for a long time, and some of our business took the opportunity and tried to do that. Did they do it in the same time? Absolutely not. We had it on the plan. We had to put exception, and we had to work through it and say, okay, can you do the upgrade in this physical year? Can you do it in this within 6 months, a year? And we will come back to it. It's always fun, but you can suggest, but you cannot win it all the time.
No, I know, but I think it's good that you did have some who actually thought about it and used that as an opportunity. And I,
You will be amazed how they change their mind when they find out how the SSO, especially for example, makes it so much easier on them. So whenever you show them one application how you can access it now and it is so easy, they're going to be more likely to be inclined to go and say yes, let me go and upgrade. The funding is a different issue.
yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. If there was funding for your projects, where was your leadership also willing to fund for modernizing other like super like really bad like or
The good thing when we started our project, VF was going through that exercise already. So we were hands in hand with them. We knew what's going on. We knew which application they were targeting. Did we get everything modernized? We're still working through it. No, we still have those legacy systems that we have to support, and we're hoping it will go away soon, but never soon enough.
yeah, no, you're never going to
We,
get rid of legacy.
no,
It's impossible. But that's not a bad thing. It's just it makes your life a little more fun, I feel like.
it is more challenging.
That's right. If you don't have the challenge, then what's the
Yeah,
point? It's not as
yeah.
exciting. So I honestly, I think the one question I have is once you, so like from start to finish, it sounded like it was under 2 years or about how long? Yeah.
We actually spec'd out the project to take us 18 months.
Mhm.
Um, that doesn't include the time we took ahead of time to do the documentation and the use cases. It's 18 months from the time we signed the contract and we got the software in our started. We actually came, I would say 15 months. So we completed it and we migrated about 180 application during this 15 month.
No, that's really impressive. And
Yeah.
then and then did you find this is the one thing like I'm interested about the end user perspective. Did you find end users were happier? Did you find end users did not call the help desk as much? Like what was the result of this? Like because there's always a cost analysis at the end. So
Yeah.
what was that result?
Yeah. We had our, like I said before, you have to start with some survey that you do with earlier on with your users to see where is the pain point. And we identify key function within the tool that was cumbersome for them. And then we looked at the ticket and saw how many we have got open for each one of them. Honestly, we were like every Monday we would come in the old system and it's like, okay, are we below 100 or are we over 100? And when now we have, I would say by August 1st, we will be a year into the program. And if I see in my engineering queue, if I have more than 12 tickets, I'll be shocked and I'll be over each one. Why is that? Even though some of those tickets, it is auto-generated from the system, we automated any failure in the background through our system.
That's really good.
So
So
end user ticket, to be honest with you, it is very, if mainly it is on the how to, and maybe we didn't, naming convention is challenge for any company. And maybe they didn't know how we call this application. The naming convention between what the tool actually called to what the user actually uses it for is totally different. And it could be to that level. It is how, what do you call application XYZ? How do I request it? So it could be that easy. And we go back and say, okay, then that we didn't take the data into consideration and the naming convention into consideration for this one. Let's humanize that aspect of it, especially for the entitlement.
So I what I'm hearing you say is there's a lot of constant communication you have to have with the business owners, but then you also need to make sure that you constantly or not constantly, but periodically are surveying the end users to make sure that
Absolutely.
you're giving them
With
the
each user incident that we get, usually we send a survey to see how was it. Did it satisfy the question was answered? Do you think we answer, we most of the time have the help desk as our front end, and they will have the KB article or the video ready for them to share. And when we look at the ticket and the trend of those incident, if it is something that we have a special team, the operation team is looking at that to see where is the most common question coming from, and then either go back to the engineering and say, this is where we're struggling, or we can modify our documentation and our video to meet the demand.
and this is all within just your enterprise users.
Yeah.
That, that's really great.
We don't touch our external user, our customer outside VF. We don't touch those. It's outside my organization.
No, okay, but that's really amazing customer service. And that's what I'm seeing too. I feel like that's why IAM is hard, right? You have to be a strong customer service manager. You have to understand your engineering, understand the entire organization, have
Yeah.
political will. Oh my gosh. Uh,
Yeah.
that's
But
really
it could be successful at the end if you really planned it ahead, and you get them ready with the why and equip them to get them involved early on and make them feel they are part of the success. I think you will have a good program. At the same time, you just need to understand your application and understand what's the capability out there. Having a tool that can support those direct connection and easy to configure and change, that's going to help the program itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's another good point is what we're seeing in the marketplace is moving away from highly customized tools and getting into SaaS products that include less
Yeah.
customization and more configuration. That's awesome. So is there anything else any other big takeaway that I didn't even ask about for the change management?
I think we covered most of it. I mean, early communication, lots of communication, very targeted, different type of communication, leadership support, C-suite communication, and the phased rollout, how you can roll it out is going to make it or break it for you.
No, that's 100% true. Well, thank you so much for joining today. This was so great and enlightening. It was a really fun conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for hosting me. It was fun.
Yeah. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.